Hi everybody. How's it going? I'm Nolan Duran, one of the co-producers here at the Museum of Broadway. We are here today to celebrate Little Bear Ridge Road by this Tony-nominated Samuel D. Hunter and moderated by the Pulitzer Prize winning Martyna Majok. She's going to moderate tonight. Just a quick reminder, turn off your cell phones if you don't mind, and we're going to live stream it, so all those things. Please turn off your cell phones. Thank you so much and enjoy. Thank you.
Hi friends. Thanks for being here and sending love to this most beautiful playwright. Sam Hunter is one of my favorite playwrights in the world.
I got you.
And it's because you love your characters, because I feel the love that you have for your characters and the way that I thought that it's like an elevation of these lives that you know to be epic, but I don't, it's actually, it feels like it's a translation. Oh, it's more of a translation and a sharing, because you know you don't need to elevate the people that you already know have these epic, grand, cosmically important lives that, for the most part, the rest of the world has relegated to a place of basically being discarded or discardable. And there are families, there are friends, there are who we are. And so the love and the dignity that you translate onto the stages for the people that you know so deeply and beautifully is all the theater that I want to see all the time. I love sitting, whenever you have a play, I cannot wait to sit in the dark and just weep my face off. And also laugh. You're so rigorous, your language is so muscular, your heart is all over the place, and you have this space in your plays that transcends this, what people might call smallness of lives, to something absolutely cosmic, and I'm so grateful to you. I feel very lucky to be living in the time of Sam Hunter plays. I just like, and as well as everybody else here, so very, very belated Broadway debut and belated Tony nomination, because you should have gotten them for every single play of yours.
I feel it's funny because I feel the same way about your. I mean, everything you just said about my work, I feel the same way about. I mean, we come from very different backgrounds, but there's something. Almost everything you said about my work is something I feel about your work. The sort of profundity of these lives that we don't normally see on stage, and I feel the same way every time there's a new Majok play out there. So. We've known each other for a very long time.
Yeah,
so.
majority. I'll get into we met a lot. We met at the Lark, I feel like, which was such an important place for new playwriting. I mean, it like breaks my heart every time I say the name. It's such I'm more in that place. This was for folks that don't know, it's a beautiful new play development place where it allowed a playwright to be incomplete.
Because they didn't produce, they only developed.
Yeah, and so
non-profit.
You didn't have to audition your play. You could really spend time with it, gestate, and also be amongst a group of other playwrights. Oftentimes, for the most part, you're the only you in the room.
Yeah.
It's you, a director, and a bunch of actors and designers. And so when you're feeling the weird playwright feelings of like, am I crazy? Is there something wrong with me? All you had to do was go to the Lark and see a bunch of other crazy people asking the same questions. Like, oh no, it's okay, I'm not alone. That's also, I feel like, what your plays do is an invitation to not being alone in one's own mess and weirdness. And so that was I wonder now, how do you, well first, what was the glimmer of this play? We shared a little bit of it in one of these, after the Lark ended, we replicated one of the programs to be able to keep on working on our plays in the same way that we used to, and it's always just so thrilling when you bring in your writing. But I don't think I've ever asked you, like, what was the first glimmer of what this play was for you?
This was the first play that I wrote coming out of the pandemic, but I actually had the idea of it. It must have been weeks before the pandemic hit, and I was with my husband and my kid, and we were driving from Boston, where his family is, down back home, and there was this billboard. In my mind, this could be like, I might have just like recreated it because I've told this story a few different times, but in my mind, the billboard was advertising something called Cozy TV, which was like this subscription service that you could pay to watch like Green Acres and Dick Van Dyke, all these sort of like comfort food programs from decades before, and I just started thinking about like, it made me sad for some reason, like because I feel like a lot of plays that I've written deal with the idea of the sort of toxicity of nostalgia, but also the value of it in certain ways, and it just made me a little sad thinking about like TV as anesthesia, and I had begun writing a different play that I never, uncharacteristically, I never actually went through with it. I only wrote like 10 pages, and it was about 4 night custodians, 4 female night custodians in like an office building.
So good.
But I had written this initial scene where they were all talking about TV, and some of that dialogue actually made its way into Little Bear, the stuff where Laurie's character is saying, "There are still channels," and I lifted that directly from those pages. But then so the pandemic hit, and like, I don't know about you, I didn't write a play for 2 years. It was too sad, it was too hard. Like, I tried writing a play for Zoom, and I wanted to kill myself. And then as the pandemic was kind of easing up, Joe and Laurie came to me and said, "Will you write a play for us?" And, you know, there's any actor in the universe I want to write a play for, it'd be Laurie Metcalf. I didn't know either of them before that, so it was kind of daunting. And they said, "Do you have an idea?" And I said, "Yeah, I kind of have an idea for a play about watching television." And they were like, "Huh." And but I tried. I think I even got nervous after they kind of reacted that way, and I was like, "Oh, but it's also about opiates." And like, it has nothing to do with opiates. You know, I felt like I just needed to like throw something stakesy in there. And to their credit, they were like, "Okay." And I was in rehearsals for the revival of Brighton and Boise, so that was like spring. And then I wrote it over the next 3 or 4 months, and that's when we were in the workshop together, and I was building it then. And I sent it to them in August, and we just did a Zoom reading. It was very nerve-wracking, because the other thing is, so this was a commission from Steppenwolf, and the story before this is that Joe and Laurie had been wanting to do something at Steppenwolf for a while, because Laurie hadn't been there in like 14 years or something like that. So they were going to do The Goat by Edward Albee, which I'd still love to see, because it's one of my favorite plays. But that like didn't work, or like it just didn't come together. And they were like, "Well, maybe we'll do like the old the production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf that COVID closed after like 9 performances." But they were like, "I don't know." I mean, like, you know, those Laurie kind of aged out of that role, you know, and then they arrived at the idea of asking a playwright, but this is really late in the game, so for many months on the Steppenwolf website, it just said a new play by Samuel D. Hunter starring Laurie Metcalf, directed by Joe Mantello.
I know everyone got their tickets.
And what?
Everyone got their tickets.
Yeah, exactly. But it was very nerve-wracking, you know, because I didn't have anything. And I started writing a play about a mother and a son. And I got about 30 pages in, and I kind of panicked because I was like, "This is not working. Like, this is not." And I realized that the characters were suffering from over-familiarity with each other. And even if they were kind of a strange mother and son, that's still such a tight relationship. And so when I shifted it to an aunt and nephew, write the rest of the play. And then thank God, Joe and Laurie liked it.
Can you speak to what that unfamiliarity allowed you to access between them? Because I love the sort of surrogacy and projection expectation with the person who is not. There's almost like a shorthand that you expect that kind of like doesn't invite an audience in.
Yeah.
That I don't know. Can you speak to sort of to what that opened up for you?
I think I've found this in other plays of mine too, that like when you have characters that are sort of discovering each other for the first time, there's just more meat on the bone. You know what I mean? There's less invitation for exposition. I mean, I wrote these 2 plays called Lewiston and Clarkston, and kind of companion pieces, and Lewiston is about a grandmother and a granddaughter who share a ton of history, and Clarkston is about 2 guys at a Costco who meet for the first time, you know, in the first scene of the play. And I rewrote Lewiston to I mean, that play was so hard for me to write, but Clarkston kind of just like flew out, because it was like, there's so much to discover when these people have been estranged. So like in the first scene, Little Bear, you know, Micah's character says like, "Oh, I thought you were religious," and she's like, "I'm an atheist," you know. And so when there's that level of disconnect between these 2 people, even though an aunt and a nephew, like, that's a lot of shared stuff, you know.
Well, for them especially, like there
Yeah.
is this.
Yeah, with the brother father in between them being very complicated. Yeah, I don't know if you feel the same way when you're writing. That like sometimes you just need that outsider to kind of become the vessel or something.
There's some things that characters can't say to the actual person because
Yeah.
I think that they know it's going to do nothing.
Yeah.
And the characters know their issues, and so you have to sort of look for where you can put your longing.
Yeah,
On
exactly.
just, maybe you can be the thing that's going to fix it, like, a surrogate relationship. And actually, this makes me think about of longing and loneliness in your plays. I think there's a very particular brand of American longing and loneliness in your plays that I probably people will throw that onto you, but I would love for you to talk about it. If you feel like that's, what is that for you?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just by virtue of the fact that Idaho is such an isolated part of the country. I mean, when you look at those like population density maps of the United States, there's this big cavernous area that stretches from like eastern Washington through Idaho and Montana and the Dakotas, where it's just like, there's like an entire section of the country is the equivalent population of this island, and there's just something about that physical isolation. And my dad, who has a house on Little Bear Ridge Road, which is exactly like in the play, it's 20 miles away from everything. Near there, it is just so isolating. It's beautiful and it's wonderful, but I just like people live such quiet lives, and you just like, it sounds almost twee to say, but you just wonder what's going on in these other houses that are like, everybody has 20 acres or whatever, and so the nearest house is like, you can walk to it, but it takes 20 minutes. But they're living these profound lives in these houses.
There's a few posters of yours that I like. They use like Todd Hito photos and Gregory Crewson photos, and what I feel about those, there's such a there's an affinity between it. I always imagine that there's a swath of darkness and there's a tiny window that's glowing within it, and it feels like those are your the hearth is your plays. That's like that curiosity of like what's happening in that house. It's very far away from everybody else. Maybe this is what there's so much potency to the need of your characters in an armor, and suspicion sometimes is what I meant. We both have that like a gooey gaping hole of need, and sadness and longing, and then this armor. That's been carved by like disappointment and a culture who doesn't give a fuck about you. So you have to do it on your own. But I wonder if it's because people are so isolated that when another person shows up, everything is just more heightened because there's a person here and maybe they'll fix it.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll fix it.
Or even just kind of like commiserated within that loneliness, I remember Micah, who was in Little Bear, he's been a friend of mine for many, many years, but he told me after seeing one of I forget which play it was, but he said the experience of seeing one of your plays is like, what did he say, I'm gonna butcher it, but it's something about like two people are sitting in the dark together, and one of them has the courage to say, I'm lonely, and the other one says, me too. And I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, it's not about like fixing, because I have to go through it, but I don't know if I've written a single play where like people's problems are solved at the end, you know what I mean? I think there's like grace and redemption and light, but it's small, I mean, if the movement from like this is being totally fixed, the plays usually go like that.
Yeah, but there was in the case, it's I think we shared a
specific kind of sadness. Yeah.
God, it's so fucking good. Like there's that you have to go through a whole play potentially just for a character to build up the bravery to say those words to each other in the ways that they say them, and that is like the great dramatic act of those plays, because it is the great dramatic act of those lives. It costs so much to be vulnerable when there's no part of the world has told you it's going to be okay and someone's going to take care of you. Yeah, that's right. You're just all you have are these is the community, the folks around you, because you can't trust that anything else is going to take care of you. So the stakes are huge. Yeah. And I found this gorgeous interview with you talking about small plays on Broadway, and it was it was so fiery and gorgeous, and I want you to recreate it, which is probably impossible.
No, I did kind of go on a tear,
It was
and it's,
so good.
I don't know if anyone saw this, it was like a SAG after panel, and I kind of went on a little rant for whatever reason about like, we used to do small plays on Broadway all the time. I mean, we used to do like Lanford Wilson plays on Broadway, and I think there's this, I forget exactly how I said it, but there's something about like, we don't go to a restaurant and demand the meal with the most calories. We just want the best meal. We don't go to a museum and demand to see the biggest painting. We want to see the most interesting, the most moving painting. And I don't know why there's this expectation now that when we go to a Broadway house, it has to have this sort of like big, loud quality. Not that I don't, I mean, look, I saw Lost Boys yesterday. I had a great time, you know, but there's room for other kinds of plays on Broadway, and it's, and I think that's, you know, I've been told my entire career that my plays are too small for Broadway. You know, there's been chatter around moving my plays to Broadway for a really long time, but it's always hit the wall of this isn't big enough. So hopefully, you know, we can start to, I mean, part of it is just the cost of producing on Broadway right now is obscene. You know, Little Bear costs $500,000 a week to run. I mean, it's a 4-character play with a couch, and it costs $500,000 a week. And so like we need to figure that part out.
I've heard the same about the small plays, like your plays too small on Broadway, which is also, to me, it's hurtful because I think it's also it's an insult about the lives. It's not just
exactly.
It's not just the cast size.
Yeah.
It's not just scale. It's sort of what they're dealing with. Which, you know, I mean, Arthur Miller years ago was already, you know, the tragedy of the everyman as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, like making uplifting these lives as Shakespeare to the Shakespearean level. You know, salesman, this like boy is a working class story.
Yeah.
Do you get mad at that time, or do you claim it? Like this writing small plays. Like, how do you feel about people?
I have mixed feelings about it because I love intimate. I think the better word is intimate. Like I love intimate plays. I've never really like when I moved to New York, I remember being really surprised at the amount of plays that I saw that were just really declamatory, very just like, you know, walls of text and the ease at which the characters communicated with each other, and I was just like, oh wow, that's not how I've experienced the world. So it's not like I'm insulted by it because like Little Bear is a small play in its physical size. You could do it in your living room if you really wanted to. But I think it also, like, the themes of Little Bear are not small, you know, and so I think it did fill the booth, you know, because the themes are about our tiny place in the universe, you know, that was so beautifully rendered with Scott Pask's set, that disc and a void. So yeah, I don't know. It just feels like the culture has really shifted. I mean, the culture shifted in many ways. There's just, you know, a lot of houses that we used to dedicate to plays are now have long-running musicals in them. So it's just harder to do plays on Broadway, period, I think. I don't know if that was your experience too.
It's all, yeah, you need a celebrity, you need something, you need something shiny, you need something that people know. And I understand the first show I saw was because there was a celebrity in it.
Sure.
And you know, and then I started this whole thing. But so I get it, and I if that's what's necessary to invite people for whom the theater feels foreign, let's fucking go. If it feels like it serves the story. Although when you have the right actor that you love so much that you would love for, like, it just feels like that door's closed.
Yeah.
That's really frustrating.
I don't know, because I feel like you also write about people who don't occupy our stages and screens very much, and I wonder if that's also, like, for some people that's just like a weird hurdle of just sort of like, I remember I did this Morning Joe interview with Lori during, and Al Sharpton like looked at me and he was like, so Idaho, is that? What? I mean, it was just the sensibility was sort of like, what? Like, outrageous, you know, and I'm just sort of like, why is that outrageous to write a place set in Idaho?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Yes, and Idaho are like immigrants who were like, you know, they're all around us, and somehow that makes it seem like you're doing something completely radical by writing about the rest of the country that's here. What do you consider? How do you define success? What is success? Whether that's you're a Broadway playwright now. You're a multi-award winning, like, you're an icon of the American theater culture. But how do you, in your heart, define success? And what's a moment that you felt like you you had use. Maybe that's my own sort of definition of what success is. But how do you define success?
I love that word use. I think several years ago I realized that I really wanted my plays to have some kind of utility. That they're not just like, yeah, I can't believe we haven't talked about this, but like there has to be some sort of like emotional utility to the play that you're actually giving something to the audience. And I don't mean a moral, and I don't mean an idea, or that I'm teaching you about something. Because I don't think people see my plays and know any more about Idaho or anything else than when they come out of them, but I think there's like an emotional utility to them, that catharsis is actually useful, that theater is where we can shadow box our demons in a safe space, and so I guess to answer your question, it's like, this is gonna sound very twee to use that word again, but it's when like a stranger hugged me, where you're like, oh, like something got accessed, that is valuable for them on some level, because that's what you ever want, right? I mean, it's like I didn't. Growing up in Idaho, when I started writing plays, I wasn't aware of the Pulitzers, and I knew what the Tonys were, but they didn't mean anything to me. Well, obviously, they mean a great deal to me now, and this is a very meaningful moment for me. But I think like when I started writing, it wasn't about that. I just like read Our Town and Angels in America, and was like deeply touched and like wanted to not replicate it, but like find my own language surrounding that. And it took many years, I feel like I didn't arrive at the kinds of plays I'm writing right now until, more than a decade after I started writing plays.
Somebody coming up to you after and hugging you, and I find the impact of art in general is incalculable.
Yeah.
You can't it's usually like 2 weeks later when you're doing the dishes where you're like, oh my god, that was me. That was me, or it's my mom or something like that. And so it's hard to, how do you measure success in other people, in the response of other people?
Because it's impossible to measure.
It is impossible to measure. You don't know how someone is cellularly being changed by something that you created, and at what point it makes any sort of tangible impact that person takes that
That's
thing
right.
and pushes it out into the world to be more connected, or to feel more to do humane work amongst in the world.
Because you think about somebody goes to one of your plays, and they might, if that person's a doctor, they might then treat a patient differently than before they saw one of your plays. You know what I mean? Like syncostic living, like they might approach their patients in a different way. I mean, and that's just one example. I think everybody in their lives is, to your point, is affected by art, by good art, and changed by good art. And it's impossible to. There's no metric for that. There's no emotional stock market that we can point to.
Good job.
Look at me. But it does. I mean, I've seen it change people. It's changed me, and I'm sure it's changed you.
I think part of it is we just don't have conversations with people who are unlike us.
Yeah.
And all of us. Especially now.
Yeah.
It's where we have vast opportunities to further silo ourselves in our own thinking, and to be amongst people who are like-minded. And so when you go to the theater and watch a life that is seemingly demographically very dissimilar to you, and you have to spend time with their mess, which is your mess, and finding yourself in somebody who you never would have thought you had a connection with, I think does do that. Does sort of slowly hammer away at one's sense of one's solid core of armor, to hopefully think a little bit more deeply about the people that they see on the train.
That's right.
Or let's hear to the doctor, but somebody who they're treating, where you see a life that may have been a headline for you prior to.
That's right.
Or was just those people over there, the thems and the us's.
Yeah.
It sort of hopefully vanquishes that bridge between a them and an us, and you're brought closer together and recognizing that you. That's many of your uses and utilities.
That's right.
I feel like is being welcome to yourself. Actually, these plays are for you. We're more alike than we are dissimilar, though our dissimilarities are very important to sit with. I was sitting in was sitting in a preview of Queens and feeling like I was watching all these women be total fucking messes. The actors and the characters, and I felt so comfortable. And I wonder if that's something that you relate to, of like, this is a place where you can be, like, to do your job well, you have to go into the muck.
Yeah, which is, I think that's like why I'm so attracted to your plays, because I think it's funny. I was reading this a couple weeks after Arthur Miller premiered Death of the Salesman. He wrote this op-ed in the New York Times, and the first sentence was something along. What's that?
The Tragedy of the Everyman?
The Tragedy of the Common Man. Yeah. And the first line was something like, tragedies seem to be not written very much these days. And I was like, whoa, I talk about that all the time. That like, if you think about it, like our capacity for, not that I think I write tragedies, but I think it does, they go into the muck. They're not about happy people getting happier, you know, or slightly sad people becoming happy in the end.
Yeah.
They're about these people who are slogging through something, you know, and the grace that they get at the end is very, very hard won. And it's hard because I think that audiences, not to generalize about audiences today, but I think that audiences generally have the capacity for tragedy if it's old. Like if it's Willy Loman, or if it's Oedipus, there's a safe distance because it's over there, and so we can watch this quote unquote sad story take place. But I mean, I can't tell, and I don't know if you've experienced this too, but like I have had so many people over the years like say that they don't like my plays because they're sad and depressing, and I'm like, okay, but we're fine with Oedipus gouging his eyes out, you know. But I don't know. So I don't know if like plays like ours, like in 20 years, that we're gonna get, there's gonna be a safety and sort of like, oh, back in 2026, yeah, it was so sad back then, but here in 2050, things are so much better. You know.
This reminds me, when you asked about the writing the pandemic, I feel like I couldn't write an original play because it was so difficult to look at our present.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to sort of respond to it. But that's when I started adapting Gatsby, which is that 100 years ago, at 4 years after the end of a world war and a pandemic that collectively killed a third of the population, I was like, oh, now I understand.
Yeah.
There was I was able to, I have empathy for the folks who are like, I don't wanna look at, but I also wonder, it allows one a mask or a sense of safety to feel like, well, this isn't about us, and then they can just sort of be disarmed and then find that it is about them.
Yes, that's right.
I think that your plays do a lot of disarming. I think that to make somebody. So I've heard of humor being called as a defense mechanism. I think it's the exact opposite. Humor is actually a form of reaching and connecting, and I think
with
that's. With Like where you're like, and for the characters, we're like, when I tell a joke or when I use humor, it's actually because I want you to come closer to me, in a way that like, as a writer of the scenes or like and I feel like the plays that are referred to as sad and depressing because of the subject matter.
Yeah.
I've heard a friend of mine calls them "hear me out" plays. Like they're like, he's like, listen, it's a musical to founding fathers, it's sort of hip hop, but like, hear me out. Like it's gonna be good. You have to be like, no, it's an open crisis, not too, but like it's funny and like there's magic, But have you felt like you've had to be a spokesperson for your plays and what they have to offer? Or did you not engage in any of that? Did you just let the plays speak for themselves?
I mean, I've been around long enough that like, I think like, I mean, maybe I'm sure I was new to some Broadway audiences, but by and large, people aren't gonna go to one of my plays and be like, what's this? I don't know. You know, like I've just stuck around long enough and I've had enough plays for years. I mean, we were just saying, I think this is my 13th play in New York City.
I was like, it's your 14th.
But I've just been around long enough that it's like, I think, the plays are kind of speaking for themselves, you know?
And you're your own genre.
Say again?
You're your own genre.
I guess.
I
occupy a very specific
and it's
Idaho day, like a very specific subgenre, I guess.
That's its own advertising. It's like whatever you write. Like that's
Yes.
why you can say a new play by Samuel D. Hunter and people are like, take my money. Like that sounds
Well,
terrible.
I think that was more Laurie Metcalf.
She's great too, but
Yeah, she is great.
what do you want the most in life right now? Answer that however you will.
Oh boy. I was listening to this earlier. I was going for a jog and I was listening to this New York Times interview with Bob Odenkirk. It's kind of random, but they asked him kind of the same question. Or no, they said like, what do you miss most, or what time? And he was sort of like, I miss having little kids. And my daughter's 8, and I am so acutely aware that I've got like 7 more years before she's like, bye. You know what I mean? Like she'll still be living with us, but like, you know, in terms of like she needs to go out and become her own human, just like I did. But I guess like what I'm craving these days is just that time that I have right now with her, where the world is still so new and beautiful, you know? This is a very saccharine answer,
No, I love
but
it.
it's true.
That's,
I mean,
I
it really
want to
is
get to the real shit. Let's go.
Yeah.
I was talking to Sarah Loney, the dramaturg,
Yeah.
and she had written this gorgeous essay about parenthood, and she wrote it. It was in response to rheology, and it was she talks about parenthood as the job of a parent is to prepare your child to lose you.
Yeah.
I thought that was so just reminds.
Yeah, that tracks.
It just seems, and so everything you might be so heightened in awareness of like the limited amount of time you have with this person in that form that she is, and every day she's growing, she's doing different, and like you feel that in your plays as well. This like the sort of the like everything is rare and beautiful. It might go away in a second.
Yeah.
And so that's the like the two people in a room watching television. There is this burning tension that exists between these two because you don't know when to, I mean, especially in Little Bear with Joy, you don't know how long that person is going to be there. You don't know if they're going to like have the answer that you need. You don't know. You desperately want to make your truth heard, and that might mean hurting the other person. As an act of forcing them into of love as well, of like forcing them to live a full life. I'm just talking about my little marketplace.
No. It's funny, and the thing about like sometimes you have to hurt people to help them. I mean, I remember I was workshopping. This was with Lori. We were at Steppenwolf. I was workshopping one of the last scenes in Little Bear, and it's a scene where she's like, "You need to leave," and I had this whole monologue for her. Where because of this sort of, for anybody who didn't see it, it's his aunt and his nephew, and he came from terrible circumstances, and when he was a little kid, he reached out to his aunt and he said, "Save me," and she didn't, and that's kind of his primal wound, and they spend 2 years together during the pandemic, and that he does not broach that subject until like this penultimate scene in the play, and he finally says, "Why didn't you bring me out of there? I was a little kid, I was begging for help," and I'd written this big long monologue where Lori talked about how, because earlier in the play she had referenced that she had had 4 miscarriages before deciding not to have kids, and then her marriage fell apart. And so she had this monologue about like how I spent years trying to have a family, and I couldn't do it, and then my marriage fell apart, and finally I realized that this is who I am. This is who I'm meant to be. I'm just alone, and that's who I am, and then you show up at my front door and ask me to be your mom, and I couldn't do it. And we read it, and I was like, oh, she wouldn't say that. She would not say that. And so I replaced that with some version of, I failed you, okay? I can't save you then, and I can't save you now. And that's it. Because like, weirdly, it's more selfish for her to get into the, like, this is why I didn't do it, this is my psychology. Like, the more generous thing is to be mean. And just cut it off.
Well, but actually that's a way of keeping him.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you're like, to risk telling your truth, like that, you have to get real far because you know that person might leave you.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of us don't share the truths of how we actually feel, is we're just gonna hold on to it because we'd rather not have you walk out of this like lonely and scary life. And
the intention of that scene is she doesn't want him to leave, but she knows that he has to. She knows he has to. And I think that's why like the last scene, you know, I remember like when I was writing this play, I was like, well, there's going to be the scene where it's like, the last scene is like, Ethan with his backpack and like, happy trails, bye. And I was like, oh, that doesn't feel right at all. And so that's when I got the idea for what is now the final scene where this hospice nurse comes in and reads this story that we know is written by Ethan. because I just thought that was more realistic, that she wouldn't seek that catharsis with him. That's just not who she is. But also that she wanted that catharsis, and so she's getting it from a character who has nothing to do with the rest of the play. And that was it's funny, like Megan, who played that part, was so perfect because she just came in and she just read it. You know, like, and I saw a reading once with a different cast where the woman reading that role tried to make it really beautiful. It was like, no, you have no idea what this is. You have, it's like you're reading the phone book. And I think that just like allowed the catharsis to exist, not in the character, but kind of above the character or something like that.
Yeah, she was. I mean, at the end too. So all of your plays have end with hope, have hope throughout. It's a hard-earned hope. Right? Her life has been touched.
Yeah.
And she's sort of passing into the next. But she says nothing. I think in that scene, if I'm
Nothing.
yeah. And so you're just. It's so bold and gorgeous. You've written already for her a sense of, for me at least, I was like, there's a sense of peace.
Yeah.
Because something moved forward. She was able to make a connection with the human being, and then receive the what they've been able to make. Do you feel like there's two plays of yours that end with the writing of a person whose life was touched because of an interaction from the whale, and this play. Is there? Do you feel like that's a part of what you've been able to do? The people who've touched your life have enabled you to create this, and then you send it sort of back to them by writing about them.
So I hadn't like totally analyzed it. And I'm sure that's right. I mean, it's funny. You make me realize though that like there is a lot of I could name a few other plays of mine where somebody reads. There's a play called The Few that I wrote where like this kid reads a poem at the end, but they're always not good writing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like because nobody's like.
What's the bravery to write it at all?
Exactly. And it's like, it's right at the end of Little Bear, I'm like, it's not a book. It's like some pages that he probably emailed her and she printed off at home. You know, like he's not the next great American novelist, you know what I mean? And like the Kid in the Few isn't the next, you know, Robert Frost. And like Ellie's essay about Moby Dick is objectively not very good. You know, but that's, I think, the sort of weird counterintuitive thing that if you can like fold in catharsis to that stuff, that like objectively on the page is actually not even that good. It allows us to feel it more deeply. Counterintuitive.
It takes it away if it's actually good. It's actually because I'm seeing like 7-year-old like finger drawing. You know,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like it's an act of love, and its worth is sort of translated through the person that's receiving it. So it doesn't matter if it's sort of objectively good art.
Yeah,
It's a two-way street of somebody feeling self-actualized enough to be able to put into words or art the thing that they've been made to realize and feel because of their lives colliding with that person, and then to give it to that person and to have that. It's I think it's more of the same sort of like we have our armor, but like this like pulsing need and heart that really wants to connect. And so I'm gonna read you a story. I'm gonna leave you a story. I'm gonna do this because that's what I can do to let you know that you have impact.
Yeah, and that's the language that we can share. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it is like I think just places like Idaho, that maybe because of that isolation, that just there is a reluctance to be open and to communicate in the language of emotion. You know, like I grew up around that. You know, and so when it punches through, it's just absolutely breathtaking.
There's such drama in that when you can feel somebody fighting and wanting. There's a shot and there's something pulsating beneath that's thrilling to I mean, you stage loneliness and longing so potently and muscularly because I think there's this constantly pulsating like please that it like exists but it reverberates so deeply and the wall is so thick that like these people and they can be sitting on a couch watching television are so alive because of that like pulsing desire to connect with one another and the guard that they have that won't allow them to do that.
Yeah. You ever seen this movie Nebraska? Do you know this?
Yes.
It's like one of my favorite movies, but like, that movie when I watched it the first time, I just wept. And I don't think anybody really shows any emotion in the entire movie. Like, there's no crying, there's no yelling, there's no, like, one of the most moving scenes I find in that movie, which is like, I don't know if people know this movie, it's been a bit ago, but it's what's the actor's name?
I don't know.
Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
older actor, and he's playing a guy that's kind of on the edge of senility, and they're on this road trip, and it's this scene where it's him and all of his aging brothers, and they're all just watching television, and the camera is the TV, and they're just talking about cars. But in the background, you're like, this is the last time these brothers are ever going to be in the same room together. And it's just absolutely devastating. And funny, too. And yeah.
I have a photo of like my grandfather and his brother in like a sunflower field.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the last photo that will be alive, and you just kind of know it. It's really remarkable how a piece of art can translate that. You feel that like the bird's eye view of the world's understanding of like what this moment is.
That's right.
So good. I love your writing so much. Sorry, I'm like psychoanalyzing you, but I just like I just adore what you do, and I feel like I'm probably can I do Q&A?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we've been nerding out for too long, and I should be generous with so much. Does anybody like to ask any questions of this genius?
And I should also say thank you. Like, you are in previews right now for Girl Interrupted.
I'll go anywhere for you.
So thank you so much for doing that.
Any love questions?
You mentioned how theater, the commercial Broadway theater is too big for small plays, quote unquote. I'm inclined to agree at this point in time because, as you mentioned, Manfred Wilson, and then you have and all those Cappuccino, Circle, Rep people. Do you think that'll ever come back? Do you think that'll ever, when people can take more risks and have a play that may flop because it lasted only 6 performances, but it was something that hasn't been on Broadway before, that really took a risk, like your work takes risks and your work takes risks. And I know, as you mentioned, the cost of producing a play is just so exorbitant now. When do you think people start taking risks again? Because that's what makes American art great, in my opinion.
I agree. And I mean, I should say, like, I've been a creature of the off-Broadway my entire career up until this point, so this is all very new for me, the sort of like Broadway commercial model. Coincidentally, I had my first West End show right before Little Bear. Very similar show, very similar theater. The theater might have actually been a little bigger, and the set was more ornate. It cost a quarter of what Little Bear cost to mount. So I think that's something with the landlords just needs to shift. And I think it might, but I also am really heartened by like when I was first coming up, there was basically no commercial off Broadway. I mean, maybe Scott Morphy might move like the Flick into the Barrow Street for a few months, but that was basically it. And now there's a lot of commercial off Broadway starting. I mean, there's a lot of very entrepreneurial producing going out there that is new and exciting. So the Broadway of it all, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I think there's always going to be exciting stuff on Broadway. It is very risk averse right now, but also like, we don't need to throw $20 million at something to make it really, really good. You know what I mean? Like, and I think more and more people will realize that. I think it's just like we need to figure out the economics of cost. Yeah, fingers crossed.
And the risk, I feel like it's risky for us not to take what we
Because we're just going to live on the vine if we don't take risks.
Also, it's inherent to what any playwright takes a risk by period writing a play. Period. It's just like this is an insane thing to do with a life.
Yeah.
You work usually for free to create, and you hope to get paid on the back end at some point. There's a desire that's so strong in you to create fake characters, to fake people to talk to each other in your brain and then on the page, because that's how deep this thing is that you want to talk about. Yeah. And like that whole act is a giant risk of like how to use a life, and I think like you can't help it.
Oh yeah.
You just can't help but like it's gonna cost you You're gonna take the risk, and then you hope that the producers and you hope that the people who, because like that is you can't really do much to like mitigate the risk of the financial model of Broadway. You just have to write the plays that
You just have to write the play.
and like take that insane risk of like that's what you've devoted your life to.
Well, I think we also, like, as playwrights, I feel very grateful as a playwright now that I've done a bunch of screenwriting work, both in television and film, because in television and film, I mean, it's just, there is not that autonomy. There is not that control. I'm unionized as a screenwriter, and because I'm unionized, I don't own what I write.
That health insurance is so good.
Yeah, I mean, you got it. I mean, we don't get health insurance, otherwise we write for stage and
You get
screen.
paid $2 to do theater, but like
Yeah.
so you can change your words.
Exactly.
That works for
Yeah,
you.
we own them. You know what I mean? I'm on the Drama Skill Council, and we're very proud about the fact that we own our words, because that wasn't always the case. There's this very famous story about, I think it was Arthur Miller going into a producer's office, and he had all these plays that were written by the producer, and he was like, I didn't know you wrote all these plays, and he was like, I didn't. I just bought them, put my name on them. And that was the reason the Drama Skill got formed. I mean, I'm sure that it's been embellished over the years, but like, it used to be like that, and I'm really grateful that it's not like that, because like, I don't know, have you ever been in a TV writer's room?
Very the short ones, but yeah,
Okay.
it was different. Like you're just
It's so different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the difference between like if I can move the analogy to like cooking, it's like, as a playwright, I get to like think up the recipe. This is what I want it to taste like. I'm gonna try it a few different ways. Okay, now I think it's ready. I'm gonna bring it out to see if other people want to eat it or not. But like TV writing, like it's like 12 cooks sitting around an oven, and there's like a huge silence, and then somebody says chicken.
I like that chicken. Maybe we'll put a little.
You know, and it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, it's so different, and it's, it's, I love it, but like,
It's never the same as
it's
writing
never the same.
your own, like from the world of a play comes from exclusively you.
Yeah.
And so you put your whole self on the line to write a play. But there's and so it can hurt much more too than being involved in a television writers room.
Totally.
If it's not like received in the sort or whatever that however you define success, but also it doesn't when it feels right. Oh my God, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I was talking about risks. I'm sorry. Now, well, I was like, let's ask questions. I'm like, let's talk some more. Sorry. Is there anybody else? Are we on time?
You're good. You have like 8 minutes, so you can end or you can whatever you want.
Anybody has questions?
Oh, I got one.
Yeah.
How do you keep going?
Oh. I mean,
It's only existential questions over here. It's only.
I really like writing. I really, really.
You are
really,
strange to me in this
really
way. I fucking
like
hate
I've
it.
had this conversation before because I know you really don't
I
like
hate
it.
it. Tell me why you love it.
Oh
Maybe
God, I
I'm
don't know.
so
I feel like it's the only time that I'm actually calm. It's just like where I can like sit down and just like it's the only time ever, because I'm a pretty anxious person. I'm just kind of wired that way, where it's the only time where I just lose track of time. Like I can sit down and 4 hours will go by and I think I've been there for 30 minutes. And I don't know, it's just something, it feels good. I mean, like back in the day, like if I got a bad review from the Times or something, the way I would make myself feel better is I would write something new, and it's something that like, whenever I teach playwriting, I'm like, like it's important that you really like this, because it's going to be really hard. Like all the other levels of it are going to be really hard, and not all the time, but like I mean, like it's like, especially those first few plays,
everyone's just ready to judge you. Like, do you belong?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Well, it's
yeah.
because here's the thing: is like when you're a baby playwright and you have your first production, you're not getting baby critics who are trying to like. You're getting the Ben Brantley of whatever era you're in is reviewing your first play, and the culture of, the culture of like criticism for like novels is so different than
The make or break of like one
Yeah,
person,
of
like this
like-
total stranger coming and like riding the train. Did they catch the train? Did they have a fight with their partner? Like,
Yeah.
is it raining?
How much did they
And
have to
then,
drink?
They get
Like,
something to drink,
yeah.
yeah, and like what you've worked on for years and years potentially of your life.
Yeah.
They come in, engage with it for 2 hours or however much, and then that. This is what kills me about. Sorry, we said we wouldn't talk shit. This is kind of a shit, so blah. It's our work is a product. Theater is ephemeral.
Yeah.
it's the set's gone, the actors age and move on, you know, the memory can't sort of be replicated in that way, but the thing that exists is the reviews on the American internet for the rest of time.
In our pockets, all day long.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pressure to like, to it's also like with interviews too. People who write interviews about you are not actually writing about you. They're writing
Right.
their opinion about you. And so where do you have any sort of ownership? Is like the words on the page in the book that's somebody from another generation, from another time, or tomorrow can interpret and like commune with and try to find some sort of deeper answer. Because every other aspect of this business, this craft, this art is somebody else's like idea of something, or something that just goes away.
And to your point, it's so hard to access. You know, like we make a kind of art that is deeply inaccessible. You know, like you can't, like if you read a review of like a visual artist or a photographer, you can Google their work, go to their website. But like if you read a review, if you live in Nebraska, you read a review of a Martyna Majok play, you're going to form whatever opinion you have mostly through the lens of that review, probably entirely through the lens of that review, because you have no access to it.
This is what I wish that we had like radio plays or some like
Yeah.
versions of it, like some
Like
way to
PBS
record.
radio,
Yeah, there's like the
Playhouse,
and
you
T
know,
Live,
like-
whatever, where there's like some way to capture the music of a play
Yeah,
and the way that it moves, because you know sometimes like that's why you have to hear a play
yeah.
out. Like the words on the air is the sort of like that is the feeling that is meaning. Sometimes it's like, and then they pause here and it just like hits you in a certain way that you don't get off the page. That I wish we had to like as a form of like accessible archive for these types of, you know, because it's also just like for the folks in Idaho, for the folks in Poland, or like, you know, or like Nominee, Jersey, who like, you know, like my friends are right across the bridge, but they're like, it's far and I gotta like get a babysitter and I can't, like it's expensive, like all of it's limiting, and but I wish I could just like send a link.
I know.
You know, to
I remember during the pandemic, so I have this really good recording of my plays Lewis and Clarkson that were done at Rattlestick, and we did it in this very unique way where it was 2 90-minute plays. We fed dinner to people in between, but it was done basically in a room. Like Rattlestick destroyed their stage to make this.
Worth it.
And we only did it for like 50 people a night, I think. And they made this recording of it, and the recording is gorgeous because it's like right there. Like it's not like from 3 rows in, you know what I mean? It's just that it feels almost like a movie. And I remember during the pandemic, I was like, can we make this accessible as just like a benefit to Rattlestick? And the answer was no.
Yeah, the same. We raised money to film Cost of Living.
Oh, really?
At the bootleg, if you want it. And don't share that later. It cost $10,000 to record it, and if I wanted to share it, it would cost $350,000 because of the unions, the various people who are involved. That like I'm sure I've had to fight really hard for the rights that they have, but it's sort of heartbreaking for the life of that art and for the education and hopefully like these we talked about TV a little bit, and like what I have done very little TV, and I'm just starting to do more film. But what I love about it is that it is so accessible. I can just the people who these stories are about can take it in and see themselves. Whereas like they can't always come to the theater. The people who are on the stage can't always come to the theater. Don't feel welcome. Don't have the financial means to do so. And they know that their stories can live in TV and film, but they don't, I think, always know that they can live in the theater.
Yeah,
if we had a way to share that with people in that form, knowing that you should experience it in the theater, but if you can't, there's this like bit that you can hold on to, so that also you know that there is a place for you here.
That's why doing the movie version of The Whale was so interesting, because like it resulted in, I mean, right now there's like 15 non-English language productions of that play that I have nothing to do with, and I don't even know what they are. But all I know is it's like Athens, Istanbul, Sao Paulo, you know what I mean? Like, I think I got an email about Germany the other day, and it's only because the movie was able to like share that story that it's now being. But the funny thing is, it's like a lot of it's being advertised as based on the movie The Whale. And I was like, whoa, wait.
Of course, everything
this is like a weird, like,
yeah.
like.
A little stamp on the play being like based on the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Or like based on Darren Aronofsky's The
like
Whale.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Put Brendan Fraser's face on like the TCG copies of The Whale from now on.
Exactly.
But honestly, whatever gets people to access it, like, sure.
Yeah, I mean, it
true.
resulted in a bunch of plays,
Yeah.
being done, yeah.
Friends.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to ask another question, but based on the accessibility that conundrum that we're all in, do you feel like the Theater and Film and Tape Archive at Lincoln Center should be made? I mean, hopefully the cost.
Favorite place in New York City.
Yeah.
Love that place.
But I feel like they don't film as much
They
anymore.
don't film as much anymore. It makes me really
living
sad.
in there?
The off Broadway, so they only film one production of any title, as far as I understand. So the 2017 MTC production is in there, but not the Broadway one. That one's not. I'm send it to you later.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, I haven't had a play filmed by them in a while. I don't think they filmed Case of Existence of God.
That's crazy.
I don't think they did.
That's so tragic to me.
But no, they did the Whales there, Patello's there. Like, there's a lot of my stuff there, but yeah, they've really slowed down.
That place is so important.
I
In
know.
those giant, weird, like MS DOS,
Yeah.
computer, like
Pretty
sloppiness,
great.
fucking things. Like,
But you're
Yeah.
wondering if there's a way to like make that
What I
more
was
accessible.
wanted to just spitball and see what you both thought of, let's say, kind of like an NT Live at Home kind of subscription where there were piracy protections made so you
Yeah.
can't copy it, but you can access it through public library's website or a special portal or something, and only have a certain allotment, and not everything is available but a certain thing, or they choose what's available, but just to get that out there, because anyone can that has a address in the United States can get a New York Public Library card, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
So
I think you have to
great
be-
amount of access.
I'm really interested to know like what the unions in the UK, why like what dispensations they have, because the problem is like I remember when we wanted to do
Maybe
the
government related, government funding.
That's
is that it? You know?
so it is. It's UK government funded. So like Second Stage, which does, they film everything they put on the National Theatre website. In the UK, the funding is about 30 to 40 pence per person is funded into the theatre every year. In Ireland, for example, you have the Irish Theatre Trust and you've got the Irish Film Board, and they got £40 per person in taxes that they put into Northern Ireland because of the Troubles. You get 5,000 per person plus an additional. So like when I spent half a year in Belfast, and so Belfast there's theatre literally everywhere. You can't not see theatre because anybody can go to the council and say, I want $5,000 to do a play, and the council's like, yeah, sure, great, here you go. And then they make it accessible because it's already funded and they require an outreach component in it. So I can't just make, like when so I go see something in the West End, for 75 quid, and I'm third row, great seat. And a part of that is they also have to do outreach, they have to make it accessible to the broader public. Like the BBC licensing, it has to be available.
It's funny how like so many other countries have systems like that. When I haven't had any interaction with like the international productions of Whale except for Brazil. They reached out to me and flew me down there, and yeah, it was amazing. But I got talking to them about how they make theater, and it's similar. I don't know if it has an outreach component, but they solicit. They like write a grant for the government.
Yeah, but that's what BritBox is. BritBox is
Yeah.
actually part of the British government outreach system through the development of board and trade development.
It just says, we are just not a country. It all goes back to this is not a country that believes in the necessity of arts as an essential part of public life. We just don't believe that anymore.
We also commodify everything.
Yeah.
Sorry for
There's
that.
the
Probably not
documentary.
true.
It's about
WPA.
commodification.
Yeah, that's
The
just
WPA is the last time I could think of the American government actually funding art
yeah,
for the sake of art for public access.
yeah.
Yeah, and then so you have to prove that there's like some utility to it, but then again, we can't do that, and so how do you translate that there's deep worth to what we're doing, therefore it's a top-down situation, we're all like sort of fighting against a culture that thinks that we're irrelevant and inessential,
Yeah.
to use a word from
But also, like, to be honest, like, if the economic reality, not that this is really getting big, but the economic reality in this country is the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and it's hard for me to tell a person who's living below the poverty line that some of their tax dollars need to be funneled into producing my plays. It's hard to make that argument, it's such a structural issue that goes beyond the arts, you know. I mean, these countries that have like broad social safety nets, like the public is okay with some of their money going to the arts, you know.
What if we spent a little bit less on war?
Yeah, a little bit less.
And like just like a 1%,
Yeah.
and then it's because they're all still being taxed. It's just what the money's being used for.
That's right.
It's not asking to pay more. It's about where are we putting our money.
But optimistically, I mean, theater is the cockroach that survives the nuclear bomb. We're going to be doing plays on concrete
campfires.
slabs. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah.
But how do we talk about theater? We talk about theater in terms of box office revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, I professionally have reviewed theater and film. The first thing I do is I look at, what's box office budget telling me? What's
No, and this was my first experience of like paying attention to box office.
Yeah.
Usually, like a nonprofit, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters. It matters.
It's like anything. Last night, and all we talked about was what is your house numbers?
Yeah.
Beaches was 43rd, you're 97, you're safe, you're not.
Yeah.
You just talk about survival. I mean, it's like how long can this have a life?
Yeah.
It's just going to dollars and cents. It's unfortunate, but like I understand that. That's the
Yeah,
conversation we're
commercial
talking about.
models,
How
yeah.
do you stay alive?
On that.
I really sad note to end on. We can't do it. We can't. Wait, no. I'm gonna ask one more question. What do you, for any young playwrights that might be listening, what would you tell them to hold on to get them through?
Oh, I mean, oh boy. What to hold on
How do you
to?
become Sam Hunter?
You just write. You just need to write. I mean, like, it's funny. Like, I've taught playwriting a few times, and I struggle. I actually like teaching script analysis better because I feel like I'm a better script analysis teacher than I am a playwright teacher. Because with playwriting, I'm like, I don't know. Like, just go. You need to write 10 full-length plays, and maybe the 11th one you'll figure something out about playwriting. You know, like, don't be afraid to imitate your heroes in the beginning because that's how you'll learn how they did it. You know, I mean, I don't know about you, but I spent years imitating writers that I love.
Who were they?
Oh boy, I mean, I was all over the map when I was young. I remember writing like a play that felt like Edward Albee. I wrote a play that felt like Richard Foreman. I was all over the map, I mean, it's basically like I'd go see something at PS 122 and I'd be like, I'm gonna do that. But then eventually it's almost like you have to create all these vectors and then you kind of like draw from all these different directions and figure out what is the sort of like, what's the playwright that I am that's sort of drawn from all these traditions. And I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like I've drawn most from like our cohort of playwrights, like Annie and Brandon and Amy and I mean all these people that we came up with. I was in an Ars Nova playwriting workshop in 2008 with Annie Baker, Amy Herzog, Brandon Jacobs-Jenkins, Christopher Diaz, Matthew Lopez. Who else was in there? There was more. Becca Brunstetter. I mean, it was like we were all there.
It's really important to watch somebody in completion.
Yeah.
You get so daunted when you're like, look at this beautiful production of this perfect women play. When someone's like, here's my, no, and you're like, oh great.
Yeah.
That's where it's encouraging to be like, we're all just trying, and then like, it's motivating and it's demystifying. The more you can demystify, I feel like, is like the open door to this industry, to this
That's right.
art.
Right, that's
Maybe
fair,
we
that's
demystified it. Maybe we have demystified art making.
Yeah.
And congratulations on being
Thank
the
you.
most
Congratulations
important
to
writer in the
you.
American theater. I adore you so much. We all
I
do.
adore you.
And we're very lucky to be living in the time of Sam Hunter plays.